Surprise!
My best friend of 6 years threw me the most beautiful surprise party of my life. She booked the rooftop, invited everyone I loved, even ordered the exact cake I'd been talking about for 2 years. I cried in her arms and told her I didn't deserve her. She smiled and said I did. 2 days later, a stranger at a bar sat down beside me and quietly told me she'd been sleeping with my boyfriend for 4 months. And she already knew he was planning to propose. The worst part? He told me what he saw the night of that party. Comment where you're watching from and don't forget to like and subscribe, because what I did next made me a bad person. 3 weeks before my 29th birthday, Amy started acting strange in a way I mistook for thoughtful. She was texting more than usual, asking questions about dates I was free, double-checking things she normally would have remembered. I thought she was just being her organized self. Amy always loved planning things. She was the one who made spreadsheets for girls' trips and color-coded brunch reservations. I didn't realize she was coordinating 30 people behind my back. The night of my birthday, she sent me across town to pick up a package from a friend who, as it turned out later, had never heard of it. I remember being mildly annoyed in traffic, calling her twice and her not answering. When she finally texted back, she added a heart and said, "You're the best." I smiled at the red light. That should have been my first clue something was off. Amy didn't do random sentimentality. When I finally got to the rooftop, the hallway lights were dim. I pushed the door open with one hand, still holding my phone, already forming a complaint about the fake errand. Then the lights snapped on. Everyone I loved was suddenly there. Balloons, music, a long table with a cake I recognized immediately from the bakery I'd been talking about for 2 years. Someone yelled, "Surprise!" and the sound bounced off the open skyline behind them. I stopped walking. My brain lagged behind what I was seeing, and like it needed a second to believe I was worth this much effort. I covered my mouth. Then I started crying. Not pretty crying either. Immediate, messy, overwhelmed. The kind that comes from being caught completely off guard by being loved. Amy was the first person to reach me. She wrapped her arms around me before I could say anything, holding on tight like she'd been waiting for that exact moment. I hugged her back just as hard. I remember saying into her shoulder that she was the best person I knew. I remember telling her I didn't deserve her. She pulled back, smiling, eyes soft, and told me of course I did. I believed her completely. I went to a bar 2 nights after my birthday because I didn't know what else to do with myself. The party had been on Friday, and by Sunday night, my apartment still had balloons tied to the back of a chair and half a cake in the fridge. Everything felt strangely quiet after that kind of happiness, like when a song ends and you don't realize how loud it was until it's over. I met Sarah, my colleague there, and we sat at the bar talking about work. And I remember thinking that everything in my life felt very normal. Good, even. I had a boyfriend who was about to propose, a best friend who threw me the most thoughtful party I'd ever had, and a life that felt like it was moving forward in all the right ways. I remember thinking very clearly that I was happy. About 20 minutes after we sat down, a man took the stool a few seats away from me. I didn't notice him at first. He ordered a drink, looked like he was trying to decide whether or not to say something, and then after a while, he turned slightly toward me and said my name like he was testing if it was the right person. He said he thought he had been at the same building as me on Friday night, the rooftop on Woodland. He said he almost didn't come over. He said he had been going back and forth about it for 2 days because it wasn't really his business, and he didn't want to be the kind of person who interfered in someone else's life. By the time he said that, I could already feel something in my stomach drop, like my body understood what was happening a few seconds before my brain did. Then he told me he had gone through a side corridor to take a phone call, and he saw my boyfriend there. He wasn't alone. He was with my best friend. and the way they were standing together was not ambiguous. He said he was sorry. He said he didn't know how long it had been going on. He just knew that I deserved to know. I almost cried, but I tried not to interrupt him. I just sat there, very still, and felt my entire life rearrange itself in about 10 seconds. I went home after the bar and didn't turn on the lights. I just sat on the edge of my bed in the dark, still wearing the same clothes, holding my phone in my hand like it had done something wrong. I remember thinking that there were only two possibilities. Either a stranger had just lied to me for no reason, or my life was not what I thought it was, and I didn't know which one was worse. I didn't call Jamie that night. I didn't call Amy either. I think some part of me already knew that if I heard either of their voices, I would know the truth immediately, and I wasn't ready for my life to split into a before and an after just yet. So I did something else instead. I started going backwards. I opened my messages with Amy first. Months of normal conversations, brunch plans, work complaints, memes, voice notes, nothing that said what I was looking for, and yet once I started reading carefully, everything felt slightly different. There were gaps where there shouldn't have been gaps, questions that felt too specific, times she asked what Jamie was doing when I hadn't mentioned him first. At the time, I had read all of it as interest. Now it read like information gathering. Then I looked at Jamie. Old messages, photos, dates. I went to his Instagram and scrolled without really knowing what I was looking for until I found it. A mirror selfie Amy had posted months ago. He had liked it. That wasn't strange. What was strange was the timestamp. 11:04 p.m. on a Tuesday. I remember that Tuesday because he had told me he was exhausted and going to bed early. I remember because I had brought him soup that night. After that, I started finding things everywhere. A 2-hour gap one Thursday when he said he was at the gym, a night Amy had canceled plans with me because she said she had a migraine, and Jamie had taken 3 hours to text me back that same night. Little things. 17 little things by the time I started writing them down. 17 moments where I had chosen the version of reality that made me feel safe instead of the one that made sense. By Sunday evening, I wasn't guessing anymore. I was confirming. So I called Jamie and told him to come over. I didn't tell him why. I just said, "We need to talk." He got to my apartment in under 20 minutes. That, more than anything, told me what I needed to know. Jamie was never early. Not for anything. Not for dinners, not for plans, not even for me. But that night, he showed up fast, like he already knew this wasn't a normal conversation. Like somewhere in him, he had been waiting for this moment to arrive. He walked in, looked at me sitting on the couch, and smiled in that careful way people do when they're trying to read the room before they speak. He asked me what was wrong. I didn't answer him. I just placed my phone on the coffee table between us and slid it slightly in his direction. The screen was already open. Amy's photo, the mirror selfie. The timestamp, 11:04 p.m. He looked at it, then back at me, and for a second I watched him make a decision. He denied it. Not aggressively, not convincingly, just enough to see if I would let him. I didn't say anything. I didn't argue, I didn't ask questions. I just kept looking at him, the way you look at someone when you already know the answer and you're giving them the chance to tell you the truth anyway. The silence stretched. It got uncomfortable. Then it got unbearable. And then he exhaled. It had been 4 months. He said it like it was something that had happened to him, not something he had chosen. He said it didn't mean anything. He said it just happened. Like that explained it, like that made it smaller. Then he told me he had been going to end it, that he had already decided that it wasn't serious. And then, like it was supposed to fix everything, he pulled out his phone and showed me a picture of a ring. He said he had been planning to propose. I remember staring at the image, trying to understand how those two realities could exist in the same person. That he could be sleeping with my best friend and at the same time picking out a ring to marry me. Like I was the future and she was just something he fit into the present without consequence. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I just looked at him and realized I didn't know him at all. So I told him to leave. He hesitated, like he was waiting for more, for anger, for emotion, for something he could respond to. But there was nothing left to give him. When the door closed behind him, the apartment felt quieter than it ever had before. I stood there for a long time. Then I picked up my phone and I called her. She answered on the third ring. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Amy always picked up immediately when I called. Always. 6 years of friendship, and I could count on one hand the number of times it had gone past one ring. But this time, there was a pause. Just long enough for me to picture her looking at my name on her screen, deciding whether or not to answer. When she finally did, she said my name carefully. Not warmly, not casually. Carefully. And in that second, before I even said anything, I knew. I didn't ask her if it was true. I didn't need to. The silence between us had already answered that. So instead, I just said her name back and let it sit there, like I was giving her the space to decide who she was going to be in this moment. She didn't deny it. That was the part that stayed with me the most. She didn't even try. She started explaining, saying things like it just happened, like feelings developed over time, like she hadn't meant for any of this to hurt me. She said he wasn't happy. She said it wasn't planned. She said she felt guilty every single day. And then she said the thing that I still don't think I'll ever fully understand. She said the party was for me. Like that made it better? Like organizing the most thoughtful night of my life somehow balanced out what she had been doing behind my back for 4 months? Like the balloons and the cake and the guest list were proof that she still loved me. I let her talk. I didn't interrupt once. I wanted to hear all of it. Every version of the story she had told herself to make this okay. When she finally stopped, I asked her one question. You planned my birthday party knowing you were sleeping with him? She didn't answer right away, so I kept going. Knowing he was going to propose to me? That's when she went quiet. And in that silence, everything I thought I knew about her just collapsed. Okay, I said. Not loudly, not angrily, just clearly. Because that was all I needed. I didn't yell, I didn't give her anything she could hold on to. I just hung up. And that was the last time I ever spoke to her. The strange thing about losing two people at the same time is that the silence that comes after is not peaceful. It's loud. Loud with questions. Loud with replayed conversations. Loud with memories that don't feel the same anymore now that you know how the story ends. By Monday morning, it felt like my entire life had split down the middle. There were people who knew and people who didn't. People who called me immediately and people who didn't call at all. And the ones who didn't call told me everything I needed to know. Friend groups don't explode all at once. They fracture quietly along lines you didn't even know were there. 3 people stopped responding to my messages almost overnight. One of them had been at my birthday dinner the week before. Another had helped Amy bring out the cake. I realized very quickly that this situation had been a secret I was the last person to hear. But not everyone disappeared. Sarah stayed. She texted me every morning for a week straight, not asking big, dramatic questions, just small ones. Did you eat? Did you sleep? Do you want to get out of the house? It sounds like nothing, but when your life blows up, the people who help you do normal things are the ones who keep you standing. And then, someone I wasn't even close to texted me, a woman I had only ever seen at group birthdays and the occasional brunch. She said she didn't want to gossip, she just wanted to say she was sorry, and that if I ever wanted to get coffee, she was around. No pressure, no sides, just kind. So I went, and then I went again. And slowly, without making any big decision about it, my life started filling with different people. Quieter people. Kinder people. People who didn't need to be in the center of every room. I moved out of my apartment 2 months later. It was a nice place, but it had too many memories in the walls, and too many routes home that passed places I didn't want to see anymore. I found a small one-bedroom in a different neighborhood with big windows and terrible parking, and a bakery downstairs that made everything smell like sugar in the mornings. I cut my hair, I redesigned my portfolio, I got a dog even though I had never been a dog person before. I just wanted something in my life that was mine, something that didn't belong to the version of me who had walked into that surprise party thinking her life was exactly what it looks like. I didn't date anyone. I didn't want to. Not yet. But about 3 weeks after the night at the bar, I got a text from a number I hadn't saved. It just said, "Hey, it's Declan. I just wanted to check if you're okay." I stared at that message for a long time before I answered. 6 months after my birthday, I was sitting across from the man who had blown up my life, realizing he was the only person in the entire story who had told me the truth from the beginning. Declan was not what I expected when I first saw him at that bar. There was no big speech, no dramatic delivery, no sense that he thought he was a hero for saying something. If anything, he seemed like a man who would have preferred not to get involved at all. But he did, and that mattered more to me over time than I think he ever realized. We had been texting on and off for a while before we finally got dinner. Nothing intense, just small conversations. He never pushed, never asked questions I didn't want to answer, never tried to turn himself into the good guy in a story where I hadn't asked for one. He just showed up exactly as he was every time, and after everything that had happened, that started to feel very rare to me. At dinner, he asked me what really happened, not the short version, the real version. So I told him. I told him about the party and the bar and the phone call and the ring and the 40-minute conversation with Amy that ended 6 years of friendship in a single quiet click. I told him about moving and the dog and the way your life can get very small and very calm after it falls apart. He didn't interrupt. He didn't try to fix it. He just listened like he had the first night he met me. When I finished, he nodded once and said, "I'm glad I said something." And the strange thing was, I was glad too. Not because of what I lost, but because of what I learned after. Before all of this, I thought loyalty was measured in time, in years, in history. I thought the people who had known you the longest were the ones who loved you the most. I don't think that anymore. Sometimes the most loyal person in the room is not the one who has known you for 6 years. Sometimes it's the stranger who saw something he wasn't supposed to see and told the truth anyway, even when it would have been easier to walk away. 6 months ago, I walked into a surprise party thinking my life was exactly what it looked like. Now, I know better. And, strangely, I trust myself more than I ever did before.